Welcome back to Even Tacos Fall Apart, the show where we get real about the tough stuff that life can throw at us. I'm MommaFoxFire, and today I'm bringing you a conversation that I think you're really going to connect with about spicy self-help and getting around the bullshit. Self-help is everywhere these days. You can't scroll through social media, walk into a bookstore, or even have a conversation without someone recommending the latest tip or trick that's supposed to change your life. But let's be honest, a lot of that advice can feel like fluff. It's like, who has the time or energy to visualize success when you're just trying to get through the day? That's where today's guest comes in. Dr. Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt is a psychologist who doesn't sugarcoat things. She's not here to tell you to think positive or to give you some cookie-cutter solution that sounds good but doesn't work. Dr. Jodie's approach to self-help is spicy, and by that, I mean it's real, it's gritty, and it's exactly the kind of no-nonsense advice that cuts through the bullshit and gets to the heart of what you actually need to hear. In this episode, we're talking about how to navigate the often overwhelming world of self-improvement. We're getting into why so much of what's out there feels like it's missing the mark, and how you can find advice that's not just going to make you feel good for a moment, but is actually going to help you make lasting changes in your life. If you've ever felt frustrated or even let down by the self-help industry, this episode is for you. Dr. Jodie's going to share why it is so important to be honest with yourself, why you shouldn't be afraid to challenge the advice you're given, and how to find the courage to push through the tough stuff, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. We're not talking about quick fixes or magical solutions here. This is about doing the real work that's necessary to build emotional resilience and create the life you want, even when it's hard. But before we dive into the interview, I want to remind you that this podcast is about more than just listening, it's about connecting. So if something in this episode resonates with you, or if you have your own thoughts or experiences to share, please reach out to me. You can find me on social media as MommaFoxFire, or you can leave a comment wherever you're listening to this. Your stories, your struggles, and your victories matter, and they're what make this community so special. All right, enough from me. Let's get into it. Here is my conversation with Dr. Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt on spicy self-help and getting around the bullshit. Hello, welcome to another Mental Health Monday. I'm really excited for our conversation tonight. Appreciate you guys being here early, already chatting. I love to see it. We have something special tonight, and that is a giveaway for a book. So if you would like to enter the giveaway, I'm going to open it right now. It is only via Twitch. So if you're watching via YouTube, make sure that you head over to Twitch, same handle at MommaFoxFire, and you can enter the giveaway. So !chicken dinner. And you'll be entered to win a copy of this book right here, which is authored by our guest tonight. So I am super excited. Tyrion's super excited to read this book. He won't leave it alone. And if you want a copy of the book that Tyrion is currently reading, make sure that you type !chicken dinner. And we're going to talk about this book in just a little bit. But I wanted to kind of point that out first and foremost, so that those who are here right now can go ahead and enter if you would like to. And I'll reach out to the winner afterwards and just make sure that you get a copy. See now. Tabletop Simulator. Why does this say Tabletop Simulator? All right, let's see. Oh, I see where it is. Okay. For the book, let's just say. Well, no, let's get the whole title in there. Here we go. Okay. We're going to work out these kinks, and it's going to be wonderful. Now, how do I say, like, great, that's done? I think I just go back. I'm going to reset it. Bite, can you do it again? Oops. Open giveaway. Okay, try entering again. I'm glad you're the only one who had entered. Yes, okay. Okay, Redo. Hello. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. We have a book giveaway. We have exciting shit happening. And I'm really excited for our conversation tonight. And Jodie has been a trooper while I get set up with all of this. So without further ado, we are going to be talking tonight about spicy self-help and getting around the bullshit. And here's a little bit about Jodie, and then we're going to dive right in. So Jodie is a board-certified health psychologist who lives in Fenton, Michigan. Her specialty is helping folks live into the best versions of themselves by overcoming negative self-talk with spicy language and healing laughter. Jodie loves talking boundaries, bullshit tolerance, and empowerment. She's the author of Move On Motherfucker, Live, Laugh, and Let Shit Go, Getting to Good Riddance, a no bullshit breakup survival guide, and Badass Stories, Grit, Growth, Hope, and Healing in the Shit Show, which is a wonderful book that I've read, and I can't believe more people aren't reading it, and it's wonderful, and I hope that everyone reads it, and that's the book that we're giving away tonight. If you are here and you have a question for our guest tonight, and you want to talk about anything related to the topic or side related to the topic or anything that comes into your head, feel free to enter that into the question queue, exclamation point queue, follow it with your question, and then we'll make sure to get to it. So Jodie, like I said, you've been wonderful, fabulous. I've had issues, so thank you for being here, and thank you for being patient.
Thank you for having me. I'm in awe of you're managing all of this on your own, so no apologies necessary.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it is to really do a live show and a podcast and everything. It's a lot of work, y'all. Like just putting that out there. It is a heck of a lot of work. And we already have our first question in the question queue. Bite Mark would like to know, what is your favorite poem? See, and the other day I had some shit that just stopped working on my computer. And now I'm wondering if it's related to something else, but that's okay. Okay. Could I get confirmation from Bite or 488 or Growling or Waddles or someone else who is here that y'all can see and hear us, please? All good. All right, good. Great. Awesome. Wonderful. Let me make sure that the giveaway still has y'all's entries. And we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
We're going to be fine.
Everything's all good. All right. Jodie, again, welcome to the shit show. Like this is it right here.
I feel at home.
I'm glad you feel at home. Thank you for having a good, positive attitude about this. So tell us about yourself. Tell us what made you become interested in specializing in mental health.
So my first career was medical transcription. So I used to type physician's notes way back when they did that. And I remember thinking there has to be something more than just throwing medicine at people. I think that I remember an elderly gentleman coming in very sad after his wife died. And I found myself thinking, he doesn't need a pill. He needs somebody to talk to. He's lonely and he's sad. And that's when I decided I wanted to go back and study psychology. And probably because of that early training, I was super interested in helping people adjust to chronic diseases, stop smoking, all of those sorts of things, which is why I specialized in health psychology. But that's how I got into it. I thought I was going to work with kids, decided that that broke my heart too much, and I was not able to stay objective. And so I decided, no kids, I got to work with adults.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like working with kids. So I know a couple of folks who are child psychologists or psychiatrists, and it can really be heartbreaking. Like that can be a really, really tough job. You think about what kids go in to see a psychologist for, to see a therapist for, and you're not just sending a kid on a regular basis to a therapist because they're happy, healthy, everything's good. You know, I take my 10-year-old goes a couple of times a year just to do like an oil check. But most of the time it's not that, you know, most of the time it's my 17-year-old who goes every other week. Like he's dealing with some shit. And so that's tough. It's tough to be in that space for sure. But I love that it was an experience that you had that made you want to get into this field? Like, do you have any regrets? Is that something that you're still in love with what you do? You still feel like that was the right choice for you?
Absolutely. My kids have asked me multiple times, like, if you could do anything else, what would you do? And I'm always locked.
Yeah.
There's nothing else I would want to do. There's so much to do in psychology, and it's endlessly interesting. So love it.
I love that. Endlessly interesting. That's great. I do want to get back to Bite Mark's question because she asked, "What is your favorite poem?" And my everything went to crap, and we just skipped over it. So, what is your favorite poem?
A Hole in My Sidewalk by Portia Nelson. It
Oh,
is amazing. And essentially, it is about recognizing that we all have holes in our sidewalk. And it's when we admit that it's there, we can then start to walk around it so that we quit falling in. And it's taking responsibility for the things that we can be responsible for. I have a huge poster of it in my office. And I often tell people, stop and read it and let's talk.
yeah. I like that one a lot because I don't know that anyone has brought that one up before on this show, but I love that one because it talks about like there's this and then I deal with it this way and it's the same thing and now I deal with it this way and it's the same thing and now I step around it and it's just like so powerful, especially for people who have dealt with trauma. Like that's to
Yep,
me that's what jumped out at me when I first read it was just like what a portrayal of trauma that I was not expecting right now.
for sure.
But yeah, that's a great one. If anyone wants to read it, there's a link in the chat. You can go read it. It's a pretty short one. So and absolutely worth taking a moment to go and check it out. Now, I know we talked a little bit via email about this one, but do you have a true crime, and I'll say including cults, story that fascinates you?
So I do watch all of those documentaries and about serial killers and psychopathology. Not because I have any experience with it. It is interesting, but I am really into cult figures. And the most recent one I watched was True Flame, or excuse me, Twin
Oh,
Flames on
yes.
Netflix.
Escaping Twin Flames. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Somebody mentioned it to me. I'm like, I've never heard of that. And that person's from Michigan too. But in why people get into cults and what is it about the cult figure that draws people in that, I look at it as to me, but I think it is about this personality that kind of preys on people's fears, isolation. And so, um, yeah, cult stuff is what I'm interested in.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that preying on the fear and the preying on the kind of uncertainty and preying on someone's who's in a vulnerable position. Like if you watch, especially that Twin Flames one. But I mean, so my 17-year-old and we like true crime type things and we watch all of them. And it's always just like, my God, what if I had gotten into that? Like there are definitely times in my life where I could be like, if I was going to join a cult, if someone had targeted me when I was at that point in my life, I might have joined the cult, you know? And so it's wild, first of all, to watch them as like let's make sure that I don't ever join a cult kind of preventive measure, right? Of you don't know what you don't know, and you're kind of watching it to be like, okay, these are kind of things that you can look for. But also just the reflection of, oh shit, this could happen to anyone. Like this could happen to anyone. It's not that these people who join these cults have something wrong with them. It's that they are targeted by someone who knows how to get people to follow them into hell. And it's
For
wild.
sure. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, which is recognizing at any point that could have been or could be any one of us. Um, that's the point, is sometimes we're not aware of our vulnerabilities and other people exploit them. Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I mean, we joke sometimes that we have a Discord community and we're like, this is like a cult. And it's not. Like, there's nothing culty about it. But it's kind of fun to joke about it. But then you go and watch some of those documentaries and it's like, that's some serious shit.
Well, what the Jonestown where he got everybody
Mhm.
to um, in their lives.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, talk about serious, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, scary.
Yeah, it really is. Well, getting into our topic tonight of just the spicy self help kind of realm, like I said, we are giving away a book. So if you weren't here before the technical difficulties, type in exclamation point chicken dinner on Twitch and you'll get a copy of this book. Now, your books, I have provocative titles, and you combine therapeutic techniques with profanity on the regular, right? So, what inspired you to kind of fully embrace that spicy language and just the laughter in your approach to self help and healing?
So in my first book, Move On Motherfucker, I tell the story, which is essentially I found myself in a very toxic work situation that I actually chose. I didn't realize it was
Mm.
toxic at the time. And it got so ugly that I was beating myself up and constantly like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this. And I was feeling guilty. And because it was a toxic work environment, and I was a friendly face, people would come into my office and then tell me about their toxic stuff, and I would take it on and feel like I had to fix it and couldn't fix it. So I had a colleague who joined this workplace about the same time as I did, and essentially we would get together throughout the day and just cuss. Like it was like a cuss contest. That's what it turned into. And we would always be laughing, and to the point where we would cry. Um, and one day, but it gets to be that trauma bonding, right? Where you're going over the same stuff and same stuff. And then at a certain point, that's not healthy. And he was telling me the same kind of story, different day, my colleague was. And I looked at him and I said, "You need to move on, motherfucker." And his face just stopped and he just burst out laughing. And at that moment, I think I put it all together that the cursing allowed us to laugh at a very unhealthy situation because you could either laugh or cry.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a fix, but it allowed me to let go of the guilt and the shame so that I could figure out what I actually wanted to do about it. Because the moving on was within me. So much I couldn't control. But I guess the way I also like to say it, it's the piece I could control was how much I let it get in my head and become a cancer and then just sort of take over everything. So that's where it came from, a personal story. And then I just like to use this example. I was thinking, I got to be careful. I'd like to use some of this stuff in my practice, but I don't want somebody to report me. You never know, right? So somebody who I'd known for a while, and I'm going to call her Peggy, I write about her in my book. She came in and she was talking about how terrible work was and didn't know what to do about it. And I told her about Move On Motherfucker, which we call MOMF, MOMF. So you could like be momfing and tell people to momf and nobody knows what you're saying in the workplace. And I told her about MOMF and her face just completely lit up. And she said, "That's great. And I'm going to tell this person to move on, motherfucker. And I'm going to tell this person, and I'm going to." And I looked at her and I'm smiling and I let her go on. And I stopped and I said, "Peggy, that's great. But there's one thing you're missing." And she said, "What?" And I said, "You're the motherfucker." And she said, "What?" Across the face. And then all of a sudden the light bulb came on and she said, "Oh my God, I am the motherfucker." And so I use it. I don't use it with everybody. It's not for every
Yeah.
problem, but for certain situations, I think it can be very healing to laugh and to take some responsibility for how much you let the toxicity seep into other areas of your life.
Yeah. There's got to be some science behind that because like, there's like plate smashing, not in anger, but like as a release, or there's that video of the guy who's talking to his daughter who just went through a breakup and he gives her a pumpkin and they hit the pumpkin with the baseball bat and it's like, and she's yelling like, I am worth more than this. And so it's just kind of that thing of like something about getting that expression out there's got to be something behind that because it's so
There is.
powerful.
There is. And if you do have Netflix, as I mentioned before, Nicolas Cage has a show called The History of Profanity or something like that. I can't remember these comedians, but there's a whole, I actually looked into this after I wrote or started writing. And there is a science to cursing. And essentially, here's the thought. Most people are taught, as a little kid, you shouldn't go. Curse words have extra oomph. They're stored in different parts of the brain. And there's some, again, brain science that I won't go into, but people can look this stuff up. And so the curse words are stored as taboo in certain areas of the brain. And so the ice bucket challenge is the classic. They tell people, two groups of people, to put their hand in a bucket of cold ice water and try to keep their hand in as long as possible. One group is told cuss to cope. And the other group is told, you can't cuss. The group is told that they can cuss, keep their hand in significantly longer, and report less pain. And so this idea, if you're walking through the living room and you stub your toe and you yell, oh shit, your pain level goes down more quickly because there's a catharsis. And then there's a whole other science behind laughter and immune function. And so laughter is truly healing. So I guess it's sort of a combination of many techniques that, isn't necessarily a cure, but as I tell people, maybe it clears the smog a little bit so you can see a path forward.
Yeah, I love that because we were talking earlier about my kids and that I don't have a problem if they cuss. My 10-year-old does not like cuss words, and if I say shit, he's gonna go ooh. You would hear him if he was home. He's at his dad's for spring break, but if he was home and he heard me say shit right now, you'd hear him from the other room go ooh. But my 17-year-old, has no problem with cuss words. And it's one of those things that it's like, there's a situation where saying a cuss word instead and really saying what you mean can have a bigger, better impact than couching it in soft words. And stubbing your toe is one of those times. For sure. Most definitely. Growling has
Science
a question.
backs it up.
Yeah, I like it. Look, I'm going to tell him that. When he gets home, I'm going to tell him, listen, scientifically, I'm allowed to cuss. We'll see what he says and how that goes. So Growling has a question in the chat. He says, have you seen all those curse coloring books on Amazon? I have one of those for similar reasons. And I have one. I think it's in my closet somewhere, but I have one that one of my coworkers got for me. I love those. They're fun.
I have had one. Yes, yeah. I have. They're beautiful. You can color them all different ways, but not quite as much fun as just uttering some crazy word, something that gets me at belly laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, laughter is a huge part of healing all the time. Also, like you were just talking about. And it's one of those, I laugh all the time. If you put a laugh monitor on me, you would see that I probably laugh more than the average person, but I also tell a lot more stupid jokes than the average person. So, and then I laugh at my own jokes because no one else will laugh at them and I don't care. I'm like, that deserved a laugh. I'm going to give it to it.
Good for you.
So you talked about Move On Motherfucker, but what has inspired your other book topics and what does your writing process look like, especially for tackling kind of these raw and relatable subjects like breakups or healing or growth?
Yeah, so Getting to Good Riddance was written really out of necessity. And interestingly enough, I really worked on that during the lockdown part of the pandemic. I had a lot of people coming to see me because there was a little bit too much togetherness. So a lot of people were breaking up or wanting to break up. They were considering breaking up. And that is something that I see the process to be so similar that I thought, oh, you know what? I got to write a book. I just couldn't find the right book. I'm a big homework giver and I tell people, okay, I want you to read this or I want you to read that. I just couldn't find the right breakup book, which is essentially to say, this is going to happen, this, and this. This is sort of like the typical progress of, feeling like your heart's been ripped out and you're going to die, because you just feel so much pain ordinarily, like early on. Even if you're the breaker upper, there's the guilt and all of that, to then moving on and figuring out what were the red flags and all of that. That's why I wrote that book. And it is very much of, you're going to get through this, but here are some ways that you can help yourself get through and learn what you need to learn so that you don't find yourself in the exact same spot. And I do focus a lot on abuse and abusive relationships. And seeing that, like so many people, it surprises me, don't even recognize that they're in abusive relationships. And so I'm the first one to have pointed that out. And anyway, I thought, well, that book is out there. And Badass Stories, as I mentioned to you earlier, is my favorite because I just feel that the work I do is such a gift. And I wanted to write about some of the most influential themes and stories, really to help people feel so less alone. I guess I'm continued to be amazed at people who come to see me and just struggle with feeling so isolated, so different. Like nobody could potentially, nobody could understand my experience because I am just so different. And they mean it in a bad way, meaning there's a shame or a guilt, and they wouldn't want to tell these things to anyone else because no one would understand. And so my real drive for putting that book into the world is to help people realize that we all are so much more alike, and we're all in the struggle, the shit show together. And so that book was very therapeutic for me, and again, is my favorite book because it is very real. Excuse me, real.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that as I was reading it. So full disclosure, I have not read the other books, but I have read the Badass Stories one, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, just going through, and I think part of what I liked about it was that it was just so real. Like you can, if you've been through a similar situation, the reactions to things and the way that you describe them are just so real. There's no other word for it. That's just what they are. So it's really good. I mean, I want to revisit something that you said also about the abusive relationships and kind of therapy being the first time that a lot of people recognize that, because that was my experience as well. I started going to therapy not because of my relationship, but because of something else that I was going through after my grandfather went missing. And it was one of those things that we worked through that, and we started talking about other things in my life. And I mean, it was probably a year into therapy before I finally said, like, I'm in an abusive relationship. And my therapist stood up out of her chair and went, finally.
Wow.
And she was like, I didn't want to say it for you because then your husband would be able to say, like, stop going to that therapist because she's putting ideas in your head. But you said it. And she was just so happy. But it was like, I never would have gotten there. I never would have gotten there without therapy. And I don't think I would have recognized it without therapy. So yeah, it's hugely important to recognize that and to get through some of that. So I'm looking forward to reading the other one because I do have a copy of it, just to see, like, how could this have helped me if I had read it, because I filed right before COVID happened, and he got out right before COVID happened. I can't imagine if he had been in the house still. That would have been a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it could have helped me recognize it much earlier. So that's interesting.
And also just want to say, my books are not just passive reads. I like to include a lot of journaling and a lot of exercises to help you actually just work on yourself too. So I say just work, I didn't mean just, but to work on yourself as you're reading about these stories. Everybody has something that they can grow from, even if it's not your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to ask you because now I'm going to, because the book is right here, I'm going to keep picking it up, which is not the best thing to do in a podcast situation, but here I go. Because whenever you're going through these, and I'm trying to get to the end of the first one, which is grit. I'll get there, I swear. At the end of each of these little sections, it's like there's these prompts, right? So it has the journal prompt at the end of each section, and it just says kind of what to work through. So is there a workbook that goes along with this, or have you considered doing like a workbook to say, here's a journal you could just use to go through all these prompts?
Well, it's so interesting. My very, very first book was called Swear Your Way to Sanity, and that was self-published. And I was able to work with New Harbinger to kind of rework that into an integrated book called Move On Motherfucker. And I had a workbook with Swear Your Way to Sanity. And the workbook didn't sell. People wanted the book, but they didn't want the workbook. So I decided, well, I'm trying to read. I don't know. So I experimented with it just a little bit, and it didn't take off.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, even something like a download would be download printable or something could be kind of cool, but yep. Yeah. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out, and that's okay. But as I was going through it, that was one of my thoughts. Like, I wonder if there is. And of course I didn't Google it ahead of time. That would mean I had my shit together too much. So as we've already demonstrated with the beginning of this particular conversation, life can often feel like a shit show. So what advice do you have for people who can feel overwhelmed by life's challenges?
Well, I think that too much because of social media and movies, etc., we have this idea that we should have our shit together, and that this is what it looks like to have your shit together. But I try the idea that life is the shit show. Like, every day there's going to be some form of shit show, but you have to accept it. Like this is life. Life is messy. And I think, so when it pops up, I just say to myself, whoop, there it is. There it is again. And okay, yeah. I think that I recognized as I've gotten older, I don't have the bandwidth to get upset over everything that comes up, because then I'm exhausted. Sarah Knight, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She has a lot of fun, spicy books, and she talks about a fuck budget. And she said, like, let's say that every day you get a certain number of fucks to give. But, at the end, they're not replenished that day. But that's it. Just think of a money budget. Like, if you spend all your money on breakfast, there's no food for the rest of the day. Well, if you're going to give all your fucks about worthless shit, when something important comes up, you don't have any fucks to give. You're spent. And so I guess that's my point about the shit show, is acknowledging the shit show is life. Everybody has a shit show. Telling yourself that other people don't have a shit show is a lie.
Yeah.
And they're just not showing their shit show to you. But let it go. It is what it is. Yeah, I think it's just the judgment and the shame that are exhausting, and they're dispensable.
Yeah. And also, like, people don't put their shit show on display all the time. I do, because I do shit live and things happen, right? But I don't go post on Facebook that I had an awful, terrible, well, I do. I'm a bad example, okay? I share too much. Ignore my stuff, and everyone else is not going to post, oh, I had a really dark day today. I'm not doing very well. Like, I could really use some support. They're not going to post that. They're not going to say that. They're going to post the nice family picture. Like I just posted yesterday with my family all in really fun wigs and having a good time. They're going to post that. And they're not going to post, oh, well, Grandma had a really bad episode today and I had to kind of go deal with that. And they're just not going to post that kind of thing. So you get this false perception of everyone else is not living in a shit show, and here I am where I feel like nothing's going right, and it can feel really overwhelming. And it can kind of stop you from asking for support and asking for help too. If you think everyone else has got their stuff together and you don't, you're like, well, I can't ask that person. That's too embarrassing, you know?
Well, and again, going back to that sense of isolation, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one. And I think that leads to that shame that is a false sense of shame. We're all in it together. And if you're surrounded by people who can't be vulnerable with you, I think maybe it's good to look around and say, maybe this isn't my group.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because it can be who you're surrounding yourself with, which I've had to talk to my 10-year-old about in particular.
Mm-hmm. It's tough when you're kids because you don't have perspective. You don't have any perspective, like
Yeah.
life experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Autumn, welcome, welcome. There is a giveaway, so if anyone is just joining, we have a giveaway tonight for a wonderful book. If you would like to enter, type !chicken dinner in the chat on Twitch, and we'll make sure to get you entered into that giveaway. And as always, if you have any questions, pop those into the chat as well, and we'll make sure to ask those. Now, we talked through this a little bit already, but I want to just give you a chance to lay it all out there. So how does using spicy language and humor, how does that facilitate the healing process when you compare it to just traditional methods without that? Is there any this is an added benefit kind of thing?
Well, so recently I had somebody who was was tearful and talking about a live event, and I don't use these techniques with everybody. Again, it has to be targeted. It's not appropriate for every problem or every person. I had said earlier that sometimes a laughter can clear the smog. So this person was being tearful, and I looked at the person and I said, "That's bullshit." Not the reaction, but the thing the person had told me about. And the person started laughing right in the middle of crying, just immediately started laughing and said, "It just makes me laugh to hear you say bullshit, Dr. Jodie." Because I actually do present as a professional in my office. And so that gets back to, even in painful circumstances, sometimes being able to laugh will allow you to get perspective on whatever it is that you're dealing with. And there is the science, as I told you, about catharsis, and again, the healing piece of laughter. I'm very much into what the field of psychoneuroimmunology. So it's the nexus of psychology, neurology, and immune function. And all the studies that look at boosting T cell functions, it's not just mumbo jumbo. Like there may be an intervention and then they draw your blood and they're actually able to show immune function benefit. So there's a whole science that people don't necessarily hear about. So I am intentional. I like to be clear with people. This is not like a motivational speaker and I'm just saying these feel good things. There's a method to my madness, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. I mean, it is kind of science backed. That's always fun. That's always fun to be able to say no, there's real science behind this. 'Cause
100%.
you see a lot of just bullshit out in the self-help type world where it's oh, do this and you'll feel better. And if you don't feel better, then you didn't do it right. It's well, but there's a real science behind some of this that you can kind of connect all of it, which is great. I love this comment, Autumn. There's a real catharsis in swearing. It can cut through the filters we set up around what we really want to say. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So now, having talked about there's a whole bunch of bullshit in the self-help world, What would you say to skeptics of this approach who might see using curse words as unprofessional or as trivializing serious issues?
Yeah. And so in my books, I do talk about these techniques are not good for people who are self-abusive if they're going to like then start calling themselves terrible names.
Yeah.
Because let me go back. In Move On Motherfucker, I specifically say motherfucker is synonymous with friend. Like you would talk to a friend, like, come on, motherfucker. It's meant to be interchangeable with move on, my friend. Which is, by the way, when early on when I was writing that book, what I told my kids, "Momf" meant move on, my friend. So
I like
I was
that.
telling them that too. Yes. Anyway, so they wouldn't be techniques used for somebody who was going to be self-abusive. Of course, they wouldn't be. There have been people who maybe are on the more religious bent, and that wouldn't be a good fit for them. The techniques I'm talking about are not trauma interventions. They're very, really deeply painful things that I wouldn't suggest we laugh about. Like, there's nothing laughable about abuse. That being said, I'm really into treating people individually. So I have been surprised at people who have been in abusive circumstances who've said, hey, I've read your book and this made me laugh. So again, I don't say, okay, just because you've been abused, you can't do these kind of things. It's therapy is just a very individualized and self-help is very individualized. Yeah. So I never, I think everything I try to do personally is I try to be respectful of other humans and recognizing that everybody has their own trauma, their own perspective, and it's all valid. I don't, if I've offended somebody, I always try to say I'm sorry because not that I would mean to, but because I don't know what lens they're viewing it through. So I don't ever want to trivialize anybody's experience. Yeah, that was a long, kind of windy answer.
No, I mean, I think that that makes a lot of sense too, because it is all about the individual, right? And like I talked about earlier, I relate everything to my damn kids. They're just always first on my mind because I've always just put them in bed or whatever right before this. But, uh, we talk about there being a time and a place for cussing in general. Like you don't cuss at grandma's, but that's not because grandmas as a whole are off limits. It's because I know that my grandmother despises cussing. And so it goes back to that individual. Like if so my 10-year-old told my dad this joke. What starts with F and ends with UCK? And my dad immediately like fear in his eyes. And then my 10-year-old goes, fire truck. And he knew exactly what he was doing. Like he knows that Fuck spells fuck. He gets it. Like he knows what the joke means. But he told it to my dad. My dad just about died laughing. My grandma would not die laughing. So you got to know an individual. And I feel like in a professional setting, especially, is there a way that you approach that to say like, is this something you would be receptive to, or how do you do that with a client?
So what's interesting is that a good number of people come to see me having found my online presence and
Ah,
say, I want to see somebody like you because I can be my real self.
yeah.
And so they come in and they're already cussing. So because they know that I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
So again, a fair number of people have told me that, or they said, I've read your book, or I saw your book at the bookstore. So, but otherwise, again, it's just getting a sense of people.
Yeah.
And some people I never cuss with. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to quantify, I guess.
Yeah. That's totally fair. I get that. Absolutely. So I know that also you talk about bullshit tolerance in your writing. I know you have an article on Medium that specifically talks about bullshit tolerance, but I want to talk about it in kind of a general sense. Can you explain what that means and how setting or lowering that can benefit individuals?
Yeah. So, like, for example, if you grew up in a home where you were belittled, you might have a high bullshit tolerance for belittling comments, meaning you don't recognize it because that's all you've known. So then when you're in adult relationships and people are speaking to you in or treating you in ways that are belittling, you might not recognize it. So I tell people you got to lower your bullshit tolerance. And essentially, I'm talking about boundaries. So how much bullshit you put up with is up to you. I get it at work. You probably have to put up with, maybe it's not. You need the job and you need the benefits and you need the money. So maybe you're going to put up with more bullshit than you want to. But in general, I think it's recognizing you have a little bit more control over the bullshit than maybe you recognized. And so it's being aware, if there are blind spots, I guess, so to speak, or areas that you weren't aware of things that you were exposed to that affect how you see the world. I remember I had a colleague who would sometimes show up at meetings at work, and she would make the announcement, I got a low bullshit tolerance today, so I'm just letting you all know. And I always thought that was so funny. I loved it because it let people know, don't mess with me today. Like, today's not the day to mess with me. And I thought that's just brilliant, right? And so sometimes it's also just, it's not the background stuff. It's just your daily, like, maybe you're stretched thin and you don't want any funny business.
Yeah. I I feel like I need a sign for Teams. Somehow Teams needs a status. Teams needs to add a status for low bullshit tolerance day.
Well,
There's
yeah, and I tell couples that too, like maybe telling your spouse, like, I had a low bullshit tolerance today. And then it lets them know, like, today's not the day to bring up a bill, or today's not the day to bring up something that they're not happy with. Save it for the
yeah.
next day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fair too, because there are some days where it's just like I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it anymore. I've had it.
Right.
I've had my fill of bullshit, and I'm not gonna react well to one more little piece. I think that's great. Oh yeah, Autumn says I am not the one. Yes. Just make it so you can post reaction emojis on different people's screens in Teams and Zoom. Well, yeah, you can. Yep, absolutely. What role does empowerment play in self-discovery and growth, and how can people cultivate more of that in their lives?
Well, so cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, is recognizing the voice in your head, the way you see the world, yourself, and other people, and how it affects your self-talk. And I think that empowerment starts with you giving yourself permission and not waiting for somebody else to give it to you, but saying, you know what? I deserve to take care of me. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have these things. And to catch the judgment, the self-criticism, and where we beat ourselves down, right? Like we can't control what other people do. We hopefully can separate ourselves from some of that, but we don't have to do that to ourselves. And I think that's where empowerment starts.
Yeah, I love that. We don't have to do that to ourselves. It's true. But we do. I mean, I do.
I think
Unfortunately.
all of us do. Yeah, it's just recognizing, hey, I can stop this. I need to work on stopping this.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I see all the pictures of your lovely family around you. Right? Am I correct in assuming that is your family behind you? on the
Yeah, there's a
mantle.
lot of it. I've got a lot all behind me and in front of me all over the place. I have two sons.
Yeah. And you said you are a full-time therapist and everything also, and you've written all these wonderful books. So my question is how? How do you have the time? How do you make the time to write and to do all of these things that you do?
Well, I am very honest in telling people I have generalized anxiety disorder. And how that presents in me is I have a difficult time shutting this off. I go, 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 and I have a difficult time sitting still. I always want to be doing something. And one of the best therapeutics I have found for me is physical exercise. I'm on the treadmill a lot just to bring my motor down, but the other is writing. So I have said before that the work I do is a gift, but yet I am not the person who leaves and doesn't think about it. I do have pretty good boundaries, but there are some things I can't unhear. Sitting with people in their pain. And so writing is, I write as a therapy, and it has been so good for my soul to write. Yeah, so it's probably a mixture of I can't sit still and I need to settle my mind down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love it and I hate it for you because it's like, maybe you could settle your mind down, maybe it would be better for you in general. But at the same time, like what a blessing to be able to turn something that is not a problem, but something that you deal with on a regular basis, into a gift for other people. Because that I feel like that is what your writing is. It's a gift to other people. So that's great. I just seeing all the family around you and everything. It's like I know I don't even have time to put pictures up on my walls, quite honestly. These paintings
Well,
have been unhung for months.
I think raising kids takes a village. So, yeah, I don't, and, again, I'm into sharing my shit show, to help people realize that I'm no different than anybody else. If you talked to my kids, they would tell you that one of my friends, one of my oldest, tells me all the time, all of my friends, they think you're psycho. And you're psycho, but again, and my response is, okay, that's,
Yeah.
but entitled to their opinion, but I hear I hate you. I hear you're the worst mother ever. I hear all of that. My life is no different than anybody else who has teenagers, right? So, yeah, just because you're saying, like, I do all these things, but I have a shit show. I live in a
Yeah.
shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there with everybody else.
Yeah. Teenagers are hard. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a perfect angel of a teenager. Teenagers are hard. Because a perfect angel version of a teenager is still not a perfect angel.
Well, it's kind of scary, right? To me, it is, because I'm wondering, what am I missing? Where are they hiding it?
Yeah, no kidding. Yep, exactly. I was just watching I don't remember the name of Hell Camp. I was just watching a documentary called Hell Camp, I think is the name of it, with 17-year-old. We were talking, they talked about someone who died after, anyway. And I was talking about all of the anxiety that I have whenever he doesn't tell me that he's gotten somewhere, or if, all of that. And it's like, now that he has a car, he can go all these places. And like, that's a great amount of freedom. But at the same time, like, you got to give your poor mom a break and make sure I know that you're okay all the time. So it's, yeah, it's tough. There's nothing easy about being a teenager or being a parent of a teenager. That's very true. 488, very true. 488 would like to know. Oh, go ahead.
Uh-oh. My internet might be freezing.
Oh, that's okay.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, 488 would like to know about the red candle by your family. Is it significant in some way, or do you just love red? He said he has an interest in odd details, so just asking.
That is my husband, so I don't know. He put that up there. No
Oh, okay.
significance.
Yeah. I mean, listen, sometimes you just like decorations, right? And you're like, I see it and I got it. It's all good. That's fine.
I don't because I see it as needing to be dusted. So probably wouldn't have all of that.
uh, that's true. If I dusted, I would also have that thought. No one is allowed to come to my house with white clothes on because I have animals and dust. The dust bunnies are counted among the animals, okay?
And you're happy. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing. You're happy.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna get kind of to the wrap up part of the stream tonight. So, what is your favorite life hack?
Oh, yes, I thought about this all day.
I love
And
that.
I don't have I don't have anything witty. I'm going to tell you the honest truth, which was my first reaction. My best life hack is saying no.
Mm,
Boundaries. Life is too short to say yes to everything if you don't want to do it. And it's empowering myself to liberally say no because then I can say yes to the other things that are important to me.
You know what? That is a life hack. And if more people could implement that life hack, I think everyone would be a little bit happier.
So that's the best thing. I shouldn't say the only thing. That was the best thing, the most authentic thing that came to me.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's true. It's something that people could definitely work on. Now, I have misplaced my magic wand. Oh, I see it. You would think it would stay in one spot every week, but it doesn't stay in one spot. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and eliminate one common opinion, misconception, or theory about talking about mental illness or disabilities or mental health, what would it be?
I think that I think that everyone is the same. I think that, for example, people who have anxiety disorders like me might not look like me at all. And that there's not one presentation. There is also not one treatment that works for everybody. And by the way, mental health disorders have always been socially defined and contextually defined. If I'm in an abusive relationship, I might be acting out like I have a mental disorder, but maybe I don't. Maybe it's the toxic environment that I'm in. Maybe it's the people I'm surrounding myself with. And, way back when, being gay was a mental disorder. That's changed. So I guess what I'm saying is that it continues to be an evolving idea, but it's very socially constructed. But there's no one. Everybody's an individual. And I think that sometimes we forget that because we want to clump people together.
Yeah. That would be, if we could eliminate that, it would be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Well, I have your socials website, Threads, which I am not on, but might be giving a try. Jodie might have convinced me to get on Threads, so I'll take a look at it. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If y'all are looking to connect with Jodie at all, please check out all of these links and everything and go connect with her. Go connect with her for sure. And Jodie, I'll just open it up to you as people are getting any final comments in. Is there anything that you want to talk about or make sure to mention that we didn't get to cover tonight?
So all of my books, Move On Motherfucker, Getting to Good Riddance, Badass Stories, are available wherever you buy books. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, indie bookstore, wherever you buy books, they're there. I also blog on Medium. I'm just so grateful to be here. Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure, 100%. This was a beautiful conversation, and I'm so glad that we worked through all of. Look, it wouldn't be a mama stream if we didn't have some serious technical difficulties. So we made it through, and I'm glad that we did. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate you just taking the time, and this was lovely.
Thank you.
Oh, and Bitemark says, thank you so much for being here. I had a fan-fucking-tastic time. Yes, absolutely. Perfect. Perfect. And there you have it, folks. My conversation with Dr. Jodie Eckleberry-Hunt on getting real with yourself and cutting through all the noise in the self-help world. I hope you found it as eye-opening and refreshing as I did. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that self-improvement has to look a certain way, that it's all about positive vibes, manifesting, and being picture perfect. But as Dr. Jodie reminded us, life is messy, and self-help should not be about pretending otherwise. It's about facing the hard truths, holding yourself accountable, and taking real, actionable steps towards change, even when it's uncomfortable. So as you go about your day or week, think about what we talked through here. Ask yourself what's one thing you can do today to be real with yourself. Maybe it's acknowledging a tough situation you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's just giving yourself permission to be imperfect. Whatever it is, know that it's okay to take things one step at a time, and that growth doesn't happen overnight. I want to thank Dr. Jodie for being so open and honest with us today. Her approach is a reminder that sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is stop chasing after quick fixes and start getting real about what it takes to make lasting changes. If you enjoyed this episode, or if it made you think a little differently about your own self-help journey, I would love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media, share your thoughts, or let me know how you're applying some of Dr. Jodie's advice on your own life. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. I've got some amazing conversations coming up that I can't wait to share with you. Also, if you could take just a moment to leave a review, it really does help the show grow, and it helps reach more people who might need to hear these kinds of real, honest conversations. Your support means the world to me, and it's also what helps keep this podcast going. Thank you for tuning in today and for being part of this journey. Remember, it's okay to fall apart sometimes, because we all do. What matters is how we pick ourselves up and keep moving forward. Again, I'm MommaFoxFire, and this has been Even Tacos Fall Apart. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep it real.